Welcome to the Sacramental Charismatic podcast. My name is Luke Garrity. I am a theologian slash pastor slash theologian living in Northern California at the Red Bluff Vineyard. And we are starting season 7 here. There's no rhyme or reason as to when we start seasons, but we are starting season 7. Took a few months off and went through the holidays. You'll be having more of the same weekly conversations, maybe sometimes more than once a week. We'll drop an episode. I'm excited to say that I'm recording an episode with Derek Morphew in the next couple of days, so that's going to be cool. But today I am joined by my friend Leandro Gomes, who is a pastor in Curitiba, Brazil. And welcome, Leandro. How are you?
Hi. Yeah, glad to be here. We had this opportunity. Look, thank you.
Yeah. I love the library behind you, by the way. For those of you who are
Yeah.
just listening, if you go to the YouTube channel, you can see his
You can see
tremendous...
some of the books, and you can see
Yeah.
some of my bread and cup here, just for
Oh,
curiosity.
nice.
So it's
Yeah.
for those who know Luke, this is a connection between people always,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's true. The Eucharist symbol is behind you. That's great. Hey,
Right.
before we jump in, I just want to mention for our listeners, we are hosting a conference here in Red Bluff, California, in March on the 20th and 21st, and it's going to be an equipping conference. We're calling it Equipped. You can find all the information in the link in the description, and we're going to have a ton of guest speakers from all over the world. We have some people internationally coming, at least one for sure, Rodrigo, who is a pastor in Peru. And we're going to have a lot of workshops. And so I just want to encourage everybody to check that out. We'll have more information coming soon. But enough of the advertisements. Leandro, it is so good to actually have you on. I was actually able to spend some time with you,
Right.
I guess 2 months ago in your
By November last year.
yeah, your lovely country. But yeah, so I just love, maybe for anybody who is listening that doesn't know you, how'd you come to faith and how'd you come into ministry? And, now you're pastoring a Vineyard church there. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Yeah, it's a long time already. I'm a bit older than you, probably. So I'll try to summarize that in the best way possible. So I grew up in a family that when I realized I existed, I was already a Christian somehow, right? Living in a church and etc. But my experience with Jesus is by 17. And I was not very interested on the Christian stuff at that point, but I decided to go to a youth camp. And during that time, I was alone. I didn't have my friends from my church. Maybe that helped me a little bit, and in some sense, because I was totally focused maybe on the message. And it was a lot of gospel type of camp that time. And I remember still that there was a resistance on my side to respond to the call when they said, you want to really live for Jesus? And I said, this is not for me, number one. Number two, not for me as well. But number three, the guy was right on the way he put the stuff. And then I said, hey, I cannot escape this anymore, right? So that was the my initial really, really personal experience. My mother would disagree, as many mothers. She would say that doing like Sunday school, probably she helped me with my faith at that point. She may have some piece of paper saying, "Today, Leandro decided for Christ," or something like that. But my own experience is 17 when I said, I don't want to live anymore like I was living. I was doing a lot of, not bad stuff, but I was really teasing a little bit with the Christians, in my own church, sometimes messing up with people just to, a teenager in general. And then decided that's not right. I want to do different from now on. And so I got back to church and say, hey, I had this experience with Jesus. I want to be like I was before. I want to help. I want to join the teams. So I started immediately helping with the worship team because I can play a few things. So I helped with the keyboard and drums in the keyboard.
Yeah.
It's so weird, but they didn't have any drums. So that was awesome for many people, not for the elders maybe at that time. But I was doing like kick and snares, with the worship team. And get involved then with the youth group, became a leader there. And then we jumped from maybe 5 years later, I got married. We moved from our town. I started my professional life. I'm a co-vocational or bivocational pastor. So I moved to another town to get work, to get an opportunity to work, and recently married. And I just stayed there for a while and started helping the church that I was engaging, right? Trying to make new friends, connect with a new church. And if we jump already like another 5 to 6 years. I'm living in another city because of work as well, more in the south of Brazil even. And then one day we decided, we started knowing about Vineyard. That was maybe something that we need to comment. So far, we are more like communities, Christian communities. During this period after my marriage, we got married. We were attending Presbyterian church at that time. Both of them were a little bit open for the charismatic, but not fully, of course, for natural reasons. So there we get some connection with the first Vineyard songs, right? So Vineyard songs started getting into Brazil. This is around 2000, 2002. The songs are being translated, and then we start seeing all that you know about, right? So this is so awesome, this way to speak to God in worship, right? So intimate, etc., etc. Completely different from my experience I was having so far. And that drove my curiosity about, you see the books here. So I need to know what is behind all of this. Yeah. So I started seeking looking for papers. Internet was still a little bit small and hard to find things. And I got to know also that there was church behind it and theology behind it. And a church that was brand new in Curitiba, where I live now. I didn't live here before. So when I was going to pass to Curitiba, because we have relatives here, I was always take the opportunity to meet those guys. And we create a connection. So even in the city I was living for a moment, in 2004, maybe 2005, 4 or 5, we already connected. And then we decided to go back to my previous town. We call it Londrina, 400 kilometers from Curitiba. We and my wife, we decided, I think we want, or God is calling us, I don't know how to say it better, but we should consider starting a church. Now we are going back to the city, right? We have friends, people are looking for a different thing. We are no longer connected to the previous church, right? So I'm not divining anything. That was my mind at that point, because I was already being called to start something, even when I was there. And I said, but this is not good. I don't feel right. Like, say starting something inside the same church without the support and completely different theologically in some sense. I didn't want to do that. But now that we're going back, I no longer belong to that church, right? So I'm not taking anyone from that church. I'm starting fresh and from zero with those that want to do that. So it's their decision and my decision. We started that look, and actually didn't go well in any sense. The church planting was so terrible because different things that maybe not worth mentioning here, but people changed their minds during the process. The ones that were starting with me, my job was not working. I had a previous experience working for bigger companies, and I was not adjusting well to small companies because it was a smaller city there, right? So no money, no people, no church. We started praying, and we decided that we would go where the Lord would open a job opportunity.
Yeah.
And maybe,
let me ask this. Just if you're okay with talking about it. So that was your first attempt to church plant.
Yes.
Yeah, and it didn't take. It didn't work. Yeah.
It didn't work.
I think that's a very common. I think people don't realize that, but having been involved in church planting and coaching and all that type of stuff over the last few decades or couple decades, it's more common than the success stories. So I think it's good to acknowledge that, because I know several church planters who, like, I think they planted like 3 or 4 churches before one lasted longer than a few years, you know?
Mm-hmm.
What do you,
And nobody
what do
tell you
you,
that, right?
yeah, yeah, no one ever, yeah, it's almost like, yeah,
No.
all you hear is the
First
stories of,
lesson, you may fail.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like maybe if you don't mind, what were some of the things that you look back on in hindsight now and say, "Oh, I wish we would have done this differently," or maybe because sometimes it also there's not really a good explanation. It just doesn't, it's just hard to get momentum, or there might be circumstances that happen in the local congregation. Maybe some of your volunteers, it's tough to do by yourself, and after a while, it's like, man, we're just spinning our wheels. Are there some things that you identify now as saying, hey, that's probably why that didn't work?
Well, maybe a couple. One thing that I always say that is more personal than maybe between me and my wife is, and I tell people, I share that with others, even if you're not related to church planting, is that when you understand God may be asking you to do something, wait for the time as well. It's not only the calling itself, right? You may be called to plant a church, but not tomorrow. And I think that is part of what happened. We were too eager to do that because it
Mm,
seemed the circumstances were, in favor. We wanted to go back to our hometown. We wanted to be close to friends. We're living in a place where we didn't have friends yet.
yeah.
You know, my job was super nice, but I had that calling of, I'll be working also for God. So,
Mm,
so this is the side that is more personal. The other side maybe is the structure. So in Brazil, at least, you need to think about how you're going to maintain your family. It's not very easy to get jobs and good jobs out of the blue. Maybe I didn't calculate that well. I thought I could be, I think I would say, happy with, uh, I don't know how to say that in a nice way, but I was very qualified for what I was doing in that moment. So, but it was fine because I would compensate that with the happiness planting a church and with being with
mm,
friends. But so I could handle that. But then there is the money issue, right? So you have to have something to support your family, and that's going down, 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 and not seeing any signs of progress. I had one daughter, 3 years old, and one just was born, 1 month. So I would say timing. It's a very important thing as well, not only the calling, right? And
mm,
maybe a third point would be the others, making sure the others, they are really sure that what they want to do and the price they are will also pay together for
mm.
that. Because
Yeah,
if
that's
we are
good.
team up with other, joining others to do that, right? If you're more committed than they are, and I think should be balanced in some sense, then we will be with more responsibilities and a heavier, you know, a load on you, and that may not work. It could have worked, right? If
Mm,
maybe, who knows, right? If I had insisted 6 more months, but as we started praying for that, we clearly saw that God was opening a door for us professionally in Curitiba.
okay.
So that's why when you say, hey, considering all the things here, right? We don't have anymore the same group with us to plant this church. We are kind of alone with 2 young children.
Yeah.
We need to first uh, consider family need, right? The family in that sense. So that's why we decided to go to Curitiba. That was around 2007.
Okay. So, and then when did you plant the existing church in Curitiba that I was
Right.
at?
So yeah, it was, you're not in the original one, right? You're in the current
Oh,
building, right?
yeah,
That
that's true.
building is from this the building that you visit is from 2015, maybe 10
Okay.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So by 2007, when we got to Curitiba, I was super focused on my new job, right? And I was not very easy to adapt because Curitiba is a very different city in terms of weather compared to Londrina, the previous city. Here's colder, it's grayer, it
Mm,
is way more crazy in terms of weather. So we had to adapt to that. We came here before the winter, so it was already cold for us. And since I joined this new company, I worked for an American company. So I had to go to US for 2 months. So you can imagine my wife in a new city with 2 children, and she was alone for 2 months. She had some support from her sister during that time, but it's still tough, right? So that year we kind of rest from all the activities we're doing in the previous city, and we start visiting churches. But that is very difficult for people from Vineyard or if the Vineyard mindset to adapt to other churches for some reason. And we are not feeling when we were in a church, nice church with nice people and good like preaching or something, then was a secessionist church or something like that. So I don't want to stay here. And you go to another church. It's a very nice church, has a lot of things, but it's a very, very rich church, which we had some difficulties sometimes because I would say I don't want my kids to grow here. Nothing against, but I will not be able to maintain the same standards as most of people here. So maybe not a good place for my children, and so on and so on. So, and then we start praying again, and we decide, what if we start again what we thought we should be doing, right? And that then we start talking to vineyard leaders, pastors. The usual way here is to have a senior pastor to be helping you. I connected with the vineyard director in Brazil. We talked about it, and he said if I could have someone that was available for being my pastor, right, even at distance, that would be possible to restart the church planting. And then I got this friend that is my friend still today. We still work together in many things. He's in Mogi das Cruzes, São Paulo, Milton Paulo. He's pastor there for the Vineyard Mogi das Cruzes church. And we started working together. So I was going to visit his church like 2-3 times a year. He would come to Curitiba 2-3 times a year. We would talk all the time. And we started with a small group in my apartment. And that's when we started, actually in 2008, about 2008.
Okay. So the local congregation that I was able to participate in and see, it's been since 2008.
1/3 of it, yes, maybe.
Yeah.
The rest is new people or people that came later, yes. But yes, maybe 1/3 of that the folks you met are still the same from the very beginning. Maybe 2009, 2010, right?
Yeah.
But in the very first 2 years, something like that.
I think so. You had your leadership team, the folks that I got to spend a lot of time with. A lot of those families were part of the original thing, right?
I think Will and Gisele, they are the ones that are from that time. The others, Lucas, Bruno, and the wives, they are from the last 10 years, maybe.
Okay, cool. Yeah. It was great. Also, it was great. Yeah. I mean, and shout out to those folks because they were really so friendly. And yeah, I mean, Will, got to say hi to my main man, Will. He hooked me up on finding someone to get me tattoos in Brazil. That was cool.
Yes, you have a stronger connection now with Brazil.
Yeah. And Lucas got me a really, really nice football or soccer jersey that I have worn several times. So
okay,
of his favorite team.
If you believe that or not, I don't have a soccer jersey right now. In the last 10 years, I lost my one, but just in case.
How can you be Brazilian?
Yes, how can I be Brazilian? That's a question that I've been trying to answer for the last 15 years.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And I guess, my time, I guess it was in November, right?
November. Yes.
You hosted
14th. Close to 12 to 18.
Yeah. You had a conference called Naturally Supernatural, in your local church. And I think there was 4 or 5 vineyard churches that joined us, from your region.
At least 5, maybe pastors from 6 to 7.
Yeah, it was really
super
fun.
Nice.
Yeah, it's fun getting to know everybody, and it's always been really great traveling outside of the U.S. to see, the state of the vineyard internationally, and so it was a good time. And I will say, I can't talk about Brazil without mentioning the food. The food was.
Yeah,
you
asked
did not
for
lie.
Food, and then I'm not sure yet if you were able to handle all the food that we.
I handled it. I thought I
Yeah.
did pretty well. I,
Yeah.
I, I felt like I was still eating at that one steakhouse when you guys all had tapped out. So
Yeah,
that's all I
I
can
know
say.
your tactics. Yes. Yeah, eat very
Slow and
slow. So
steady, slow and
yeah,
steady.
finish later. Seems like you had more. You didn't. You're a
Uh,
smart guy. Yeah. Yeah, good
it
way.
looked
Yeah.
like it though. Yeah, but
Yeah.
my daughter and I just had a great time, and yeah, and your wife and your two daughters were so hospitable. Yeah, so we really had a great time. I'm curious, like what after we're about to do this conference in March, and
Mhm.
the hope is obviously to see some fruit from that. What was some of the fruit from the conference that you saw? You got to have a lot of your local congregation gather together in addition to other churches. Has there been any positive forward progress in regards to some of the stuff that was addressed and the relationships that were fostered?
I would say that people get very motivated, right, to keep growing on these areas. So we have been talking more about some of the areas we are, I would say, weaker in terms of practice, right? We embrace all the principles or the priorities or the sides of this whole charismatic thing, but sometimes you're more focused on one area than the other. I particularly, as you know, I have been reading more about deliverance and reading again about inner healing, just
Yeah.
because the opportunity and because I see that is a something that we need to have more attention. I don't know what will be the result. I'm finished that book that you recommended. If you want to
Yeah.
recommend it here as well,
Yeah.
I will
Deliverance.
leave
Yeah.
it for you. But yeah, I like it a lot. That book. I'm in the conclusion now. So that was one topic. People talked about that with me. They keep sending me links. I'm the type of pastor people send links when they,
Mm.
you know, you see this. And I keep, oh my gosh, one more video to watch, one more article to read. People want some answers. And it's all connected with like, is this like people going so crazy in this area, but we have a nice way to
Mm.
do, to make it? I feel that type of, question behind the scenes, right? So where we are, where we stand for this, right? I know you don't like the crazy, like nonsense stuff. I know you don't like not doing that or not talking about that. So where we are, so we're still processing. So I think the conference helped to kick off in some ways, or make us thinking about those topics, right? Especially
Yeah.
deliverance and prophecy. I would say these two. We
Yeah.
still need to go deeper on that. We have some ideas for this year. So in this area was one thing looking. The other area that I would say the conference personally for us, this is more general. What I said is more for the
Mhm.
other pastors as well. They all said the same. They were super happy. I was surprised actually because it's
Me
always
too. I mean, when you and I were talking about session topics, and because I think it was interesting, praying about it. Like it wasn't one of the sessions I talked about was discernment, and I was like, yeah,
Mhm.
I really feel like I think I need to talk about discernment in a naturally supernatural world. And then yeah, doing a session on deliverance was like I was a little nervous to be honest with you because I was like I don't know how this is going to go over. It might freak everybody out a little bit. Yeah, so that's
Well,
funny.
I can give you a feedback about that as well. So that's
Yeah,
one of the sessions. I had two feedbacks, right? One people
yeah,
said, "Why we didn't start the crazy stuff after that? Why look stop
yeah,
it?"
yeah,
And
yeah,
I gave my answer. Okay,
yeah,
I came up with some answer. I don't know if I represented you well, but I did
yeah,
my best. The second group of people said that was very well handled, right? Because we get to understand a bit of it. It was not that scary,
yeah,
and then when it could get scary, he kind of said, you think about it.
yeah, yeah,
See
yeah,
how it
yeah,
things would be in your
yeah,
context, and good luck.
yeah,
Bless you. Okay.
yeah. That's kind of. I was telling a friend of ours in our local church about it. Who she does deliverance ministry. She's a Christian counselor, and I was like, yeah, it was interesting because I think when we got into ministry time, because I think, just like the presentation was mostly like a biblical theology of deliverance and
hmm
I felt like kind of a nudge to like, hey, this is part of our heritage, our legacy in the Vineyard is deliverance is part of the package. It's not just
hmm
like something that happened in the 80s. But when it came to ministry time, my sense, and I don't know if I was trying to discern. Because I could tell there were some people who were like, yeah, let's get wild, like, I don't know, they were, maybe
You could
maybe
see
a
that,
little bit.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there were some people that maybe on the more far to the Pentecostals, I don't know. And I don't mean that in a pejorative way, but just, definitely wanting to
Right.
have that. And then you could definitely tell there were some people who started out very nervous, and then it was like, oh, okay, no,
That
there
could
is
be
a,
also Pentecostal in some sense, right? Like
yeah,
people
yeah, because
afraid
their
of, I'm
experience.
gonna be
Yeah,
exposed, right?
yeah, 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 for sure.
But
Yeah,
yeah, I think what when I say this started the conversation in that being a good thing is also because when we see that when I read on that deliverance book as well, is so well connected with inner healing. So he's still
yeah,
talking about healing people. It's not even just a freedom by freedom. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, yeah, for sure.
just it's more profound. It's more caring. I would say it is. I like it the way the guy put it there. I don't know
Yeah,
what to start
and
with,
and
how to
yeah.
start with
So
that, but it's a
for
different topic.
anybody interested in this book we're talking about, it's written by John Thompson. It's called Deliverance: A Journey Toward the Unexpected, and I think it's one of the better books written on the topic. And the reason why is because I think it's comprehensive and holistic.
Yes.
It doesn't. It has a grid for what we would call like power encounters or the Charles Kraft model. It also has like the Neil Anderson truth encounter
Hmm.
emphasis. It also has a sacramental liturgical
Yeah,
approach. It sees the value of therapy. I
I
just
saw that.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah, it's very very very
It's
good.
a
I think.
very honest book because there is nothing
Yeah.
like we know how to do it. This is easy, blah, blah, blah. It's very honest in the process to learn how to operate,
Hmm.
that you need to learn. You need to be open for, including different practices and being honest about what they chose and not
Yeah.
saying what we chose is the right way even.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
I like it a lot, the honesty and the
And
details, history.
yeah, and it was, I think too. It was interesting because I was talking to his friend and I was saying how I don't know if this is me reading into the room a bit, but my sense was in that moment was that it was like I felt a I don't know if it was like a lack of faith, but I definitely felt like we had accomplished what God had wanted us to accomplish with like stirring the pot a little bit and really laying the foundation for, hey, this is a tool that needs to be in your toolbox, and you need to like lean into that. And I'm assuming, because I think the kind of the encouragement was like, hey, if you're a pastor in this room, like you need to start doing some training on this topic in your local context, and also start pursuing it a bit. But yeah, it was kind of interesting though, because it was like, all right, well, let's go to
Where
lunch.
do we go from here, right? So pizza.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, and I will certainly now. Well, the conference was close to the end of the year, so we don't have a lot of time to
yeah,
explore other things, right? But
yeah,
now that we're starting a new year, I certainly will take some time to talk to the other pastors and see where they are with that. If they want to talk more about it, maybe we can have
yeah,
some sessions with you again, even online,
yeah,
and
yeah,
discuss that a little bit further. But back to the conference, the results, right? We're not looking for results. We didn't have a nice time, but the results are also connected with, especially I think leadership and people around the leadership. They seem to be very motivated
mm,
from now on to see the church growing.
yeah.
So
That was my
yeah,
favorite thing out of all of the. I think we were there for a week or 8 days. I will say my number one thing was being able to be there with my oldest daughter. That was just so special to me, and seeing her connect with your daughters because they're all about the same age. And yeah, I was just so happy watching them pray for people, and I don't know, that was great. And food obviously up there, but I think our Sunday afternoon just hanging out with the leadership team was the most fun for me. I love that brainstorming and hanging out together and hearing the challenges that they're facing, and yeah, it was really a great time.
Yeah, it
like
was a
that.
great time for
So
me as well because it was like 5 years that I didn't have to say anything. I was just listening to you and then listen to you. I was just observing and trying to record mentally what I would have to, discuss later. But
yeah.
I can tell you, we had like
You mean
planning
fit? You
meeting.
mean what you'll have to
Yeah.
fix later? That's what
Or
it is.
it's,
Like, okay,
yeah,
Luke said this, but
mostly I don't have to, I didn't have to fix anything.
yeah,
Look, don't worry. But yeah, later, like 2 weeks or 3 weeks later, we had a planning meeting. So a lot of your insights and your suggestions, we also talked about that. We incorporate in our plans,
yeah,
and I think that's gonna be also something that we will,
yeah.
get some
I think
fruits from that.
I think that's a I think that's a really I mean one thing I've always want to tell pastors when I've had an opportunity to work with teams is, generally it's like, because even in our local church, we've brought people in to give us like a outside perspective on their experience, and it's generally like just 3 to 5 like minor tweaks on things that if you just, again, it's hard to
Mm-hmm.
see it when you're in it all the time, right? Because you're in the monotony
Mm-hmm.
of like, but yeah, it's like your congregation, there's so many positive, good things in that community, and it's like, oh, if you just adjust like this one thing or this little thing here, it makes all the difference in the world, but it's hard to see it when you're in it, right? And so yeah, it's fun doing that.
And that's exactly what we're doing. And if you see one thing that we never expected to work on, and we did after that conversation with you as well, was working the mission and the vision. So we went
Mm,
back to that actually because
yeah,
at that we haven't been using that clearly. And you told us, right? You guys need to work that out, and everything that you do during the year or the next years or for a period of time has to be somehow connect with that. People need to know that, right? And it's so basic, and we know that, but sometimes there is lots of basic things that we
yeah,
forget, and we
yeah,
get involved with
yeah.
agenda and events and things, and we don't do that. We want
Mm,
results without working the basics. So we went from 4 lines vision and 4 lines mission to 5 words mission
mm,
and 5 words vision. We simplified that a lot. We
cool.
discussed that a lot. That created a lot of agreement between the leadership. And we are not planning to start talking about the vision and the mission directly and indirectly with the church in the
Yeah,
next weeks, in the beginning of the year. So everything else that we are planning for the year, we will now be connected with the vision and the mission. So
well,
thanks
that's
for that.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh, it's fun. Yeah, it's great. Okay, so we're talking about leadership here, and I want to bring this in really quickly. So,
Okay. Nice
you've
book.
heard
Yeah.
you've heard of this book. I don't
Yes.
know
I
if it'll
heard a
focus on
few
that.
things about it. Yes.
It's written by this guy right here, Leandro.
Yeah,
So
that's
in
me.
in English, because this book is in Portuguese, what is the title in English?
Well, if you read the book, we use in your Google Translator,
Yeah,
and
scan
at
every
least
page.
yeah, it's at least the introduction. I believe, if I don't, if I didn't forget that
Yeah.
I mentioned this title actually is very similar, if not exactly the same as one thing that Reagan said once, right? If not us, who?
Mm-hmm.
If not now, when?
Yeah.
And this title came, this book is something that I wrote right before the pandemic
Mm.
because everybody was so down, right? So tired and so unmotivated that I said, I need to talk back. I need to talk again about the basic things, right, on the gospel. Like, so then we start talking about that, how we are called for fruits and how Jesus called us. There is the same parable that you shared with us Sunday, I guess, when
Mm-hmm. Parable of the
the
sower.
yes, that
Yeah.
one is
Yeah.
in the book because it's the first one talking about the fruits, right? Everybody has something to contribute. I approach it that way, starting from that. So it's all the basic things. The first half of the book is calling us, if not us, who? If we don't do something, who you do? We are the ones called, right? We cannot stay in our sofas at home. And remember, this was after getting used to only attend online church,
Mm-hmm.
right? Transmissions and live transmissions, etc. half of the church maybe was not coming back, and they're watching from home, not getting to the building. So let's do something. We need to do something. And I did that as a series initially in the church. I found this is a good topic for me for my first book, a simple one. And then after that, I thought, I can extend that. And let's say, if not now, when? It's not only, knowing that you have something you can do, but you need to start doing actually, right? The time is now. And help us. It was also a cry for the church to say, hey, we are a church. It's not a me only, right? It's all of us. And it was funny. You asked it in the beginning, when I came back to Christ. I remember when I was 17, I joined the youth group in my church after I came back to Jesus. And I was asked to share a sermon or a teaching on a Sunday with the youth. And my first sermon in my life was about the calling for being a disciple versus being just the crowned. You know what I mean? So we're called to be disciples. We're called to be near Jesus, not around Jesus only. So I explored that in the beginning of the book, and that's my point to the rest of the book, actually. So know the basic things about gifts, fruits of spirit, dying for Jesus, etc. All the basic things in the first 6 chapters, and then the last 6 chapters more being around Jesus and around the table, and that's the other 6 chapters are all extracts from perspectives from the table, right? The cup and the bread, or how even the table was set, right? And everything that happened during that process explored in 6 chapters to give a sense of being a disciple and being close by to Jesus, right? Very close and walk with him. That's our calling. So that's mainly what I tried to translate in that book, and I got some good feedback.
Yeah. I mean, it just from what so I did do some. Because I have this app that I can do it'll take a photo and then I'll translate it, but so it's what's fascinating about it is that it's not just about leadership in general. It's kind of like self-leadership, right? Like about, the idea of what it means to be a follower of Jesus. I'm curious because you've been in leadership for a while now, and like what are some of the challenges in Curitiba, because obviously Brazil's this massive country. In fact, it's a lot bigger than I think maybe a lot of people realize. It's like, no, it's huge, and millions of people. Because Curitiba is a small city, okay, scare quotes, with millions of people, though. So for me, in a town of
2 to 3 million,
15,000 people, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's massive. What are some of the challenges in leadership in your context?
In my context, so let's set the context a little bit. So it's a capital in Brazil, so it's a big capital, and it's a very known capital. People like Curitiba a lot, especially for traveling sometimes, right? Because it's seen as a modern city, a clean city, etc., etc. I think the challenge for the leadership is to help people and even ourselves to live in this very complex context. Everything takes time for you to move from one place to the other. So if you have children at school age, right? So it's 20 minutes here, 30 minutes go there, and then people get so crazy with all the activities they normally have to do in life to keep the family together and to work and to rest, that becomes very difficult, the work when people are like working with volunteers sometimes, right? You have to have more volunteers sometimes. You have to have more people. And you can imagine that requires more training, right? More contact. And if you can do that, and I'm a co-vocational at this point. So I don't have the time as well for maybe what was necessary in that sense. So we're trying to navigate all this, especially this year as well, with some different programs we're trying to do, maybe more intentionally I'm trying to go back to, again, basics on this sense, like with discipleship, in a different discipleship, not like class type of discipleship, but be in contact with people more frequently, even in a short space of time, maybe 10,
Yeah.
15 minutes, even
Mm.
online sometimes because of the distance. So all this craziness that we live in the society right now, the screen time that we lose many times, right? It's very frequent that people need more time for resting and
Mm.
being home than before in 5 years ago. I don't know if that is related to pandemic as well, that
Mm.
troubled everything, or it was already happening. But
Yeah.
here, that's one thing that is difficult for us being a small church, is to have all volunteers, the necessary volunteers, people helping in different areas, but not kind of suffocating everybody with activities at the same time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes people came from those contexts. They don't want anymore to be crazy church. Sorry for saying that, but people,
Hmm.
crazy church that have activities every day. You have small groups every day and events every day, and people get only living for that. And that's not healthy, I guess, and it's not even maybe biblical in some sense. We were looking for a way to administrate that better.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's one big
Yeah.
challenge for the leadership, how to
Yeah.
build that thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I think over the last season of this podcast, I interviewed a lot of I I I mean people who I really respect and I really value my relationship with. And many of them are like, no one knows who they are other than their local church, because there's a lot
Hmm.
of podcasts out there that have all the famous national people on it,
Right.
and whatnot. And it's like, I don't know. I just find it kind of like it's like, nah, it's nice hearing from people who are, I want to say, not normal, but maybe, like the typical, like, yeah, it's
Hmm.
hard. Ministry is hard. Churches are a church is a very challenging sphere to be in leadership in, or can be, and so yeah, I really appreciate the fact that, like your church is normal, like it's a challenge, like small groups and kids ministry, and having volunteers, and it's like, it's kind of encouraging, like, oh, okay, it's not just our congregation that struggles with these things, it's like most, so yeah, I think you're right. It is interesting how, there is definitely a lot of questions about, is the current state of ministry that we're in, is it a result of the pandemic, or is it as a result of social media, and is it
All together,
yeah, or
maybe.
yeah, probably. I think it's kind of everything,
Yeah.
but no matter what, I think
Hmm.
we all see the world is different today than it was 7 years ago. Right, like there's definitely been some shifts, and so it's I think kind of what I've observed from your stories and what you've kind of talked about is that you've had to be pretty flexible. You've had to adapt. You've had to be willing to try new things. You've had to be creative, and those are all things that I noticed, and I was like, oh man, that's really a great idea. Like we probably should have done that, and so I those are some takeaways that I have as an outsider, is that I think your community, and maybe even a lot more in South America, because I noticed this in Peru too with Rodrigo, is that there seems to be a willingness to be flexible, adaptive, and creative, that
Hmm.
maybe is a good thing for other people to see as being, like kind of essential to be able to last for the long haul and be effective in ministry. Did you plan that? I mean, or are you just a flexible guy?
No, I'm not I'm trying to be a flexible guy. I'm trying to be more of a mix, actually, in the sense, like
Yeah.
flexible in the sense to change quick what needs to be changed, right? Try things for 6 months maybe, and not be too tied to one model or
Mm-hmm.
one thing. I think Wimber was somehow like that, right? It's
Yeah.
not working. It's okay to try something else. What you mentioned challenge. One thing that it always bothers me a little bit is it probably happened to other pastors. So once you're talking here about normal, quote unquote, normal church and pastors, what maybe the average, right, church that are smaller, in fact, is that with the media, there is a lot of comparison, right, between programs and church. So I think nowadays for pastors not experience like explosion of growing or something like that, the pace for the church to grow. Imagine like someone starting a church planting like 6 months ago. What was the expectations to grow like
Mm.
10 members, 20 members, 100
Mm-hmm.
members? Now it's 1 year and they still have just 10%, 20% more people there. And some of the people left the church already in 1 year. So
Yeah.
that is a very difficult thing. And we experience a lot of that as well. If your church doesn't grow super fast to a point, it will be, the turnover will be kind of significantly, right, in
Mm.
this process. So that mess, that it's not good for your personal, mood or the emotions sometimes. That's a challenge for the leadership as well, to be able to properly evaluate, are we doing good? Are we doing what God wants? And
Mm.
I can tell you of maybe sharing this for the first time. Last year, I was talking to my director here. We're talking about how things are, and we talk about that sometimes. Really nice that he calls us sometimes and see how we are. And we have this relationship that allows us to do that. We're talking about we're feeling a few bit more tired than it before, me and my wife, and we're praying to see what should we be doing, right? Next, or we're somehow not feeling well. And then it was interesting because I
Mm.
was watching a podcast as well from someone in Brazil, and it's a famous program here, but that's not the important thing. And the person was sharing his own entire life as a ministry, right? Minister. And in some point, um, he said, was he or she? I think was she. She said like something like this: "It's not about how good you are going, actually, is how much obedient you are for what God is
Mm-hmm.
asking from you." I said,
Mm.
"Oh gosh, that's for me." That's because it was super related to the context here is maybe difficult, but we were praying about that, right, in some sense. And and then I told my wife, you know what? You should listen to this podcast. I will not give you any clues and hints on this. You just listen to the podcast. We'll talk about it later. And then she listened to the podcast, and I said, what was the thing that you got there? She said that we need to be obedient and do not worry about measuring the success in some sense, right? I said, okay, so let's continue. Let's continue being obedient. Let's trust that God will, you, you know, conduct us this the best way.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, again, and I'm saying that because it's connected with you're seeing others, right, progressing better than you sometimes, even inside the vineyard or outside the vineyard. And am I doing the right things? Why this guy just started a church in 1 year ago and he has 200 people, right? I'm in the wrong side of the church, the city. I'm on the wrong street. We start making crazy uh considerations, right? That makes no sense
Mm.
sometimes. Even why the street matters in the end, right? This is not God doing something here, you know. So and again, this is not pandemic. Maybe it is as well, but it's more connected to the media, right? The social
Mm.
media and the times we live. We didn't see anybody before. Look, it's mostly you talking to your friends, your co-pastors in other churches, and
Mm.
challenges exchanged, prayers, etc. Now we see everybody, right? Kind of see everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that's well, even like this conversation right here. You're in Brazil, I'm in, in the United States, and yeah, we're more. I think all of us have probably said this, where it's like we're more globally connected than ever before, but more locally disconnected, because
Mm-hmm.
it's easy to live online, right? And where you have access to millions of voices and millions of influences, but there's a lot of people who are feeling isolated and feeling disconnected and feeling, like they don't have friendships, which I think is one of the, primary reasons why I think the local church and building community and relationships is so important for us to do. I mean, and I don't want to, like, I'm trying to navigate a bit of that, I think, in my own personal um thinking, because it's like I obviously technology and social media and the way it can be a resource and a tool for discipleship or for the kingdom. But I also am like we don't live stream our services, and we have a lot of people who are always asking, oh, please, will you guys do that? And I'm like, for a number of reasons. Our budget for that is like nothing. We're not going to put money towards it, so we're not going to do it very well. We'll probably just set
Mm-hmm.
up a phone in the back. There's lots of other churches out there that have really good live streams. I'm not going to compete with that. Like, I don't even want
Mm-hmm.
to. But secondarily, I just have such and I don't think it's either or. So because some people will say, well, it can be both and. Absolutely. But I have such a high value for embodiment and for personal relationships. And I think that oftentimes, the technology can actually get in the way of that, to where we are living in this world where we're, have a million friends, but like no one who actually cares about us, really. So,
Right.
and I don't have an answer for that too. That's why I would say I'm still kind of processing that, but I think you guys have done, um, it seemed like you've done a really good job of balancing that, because my observation is that, and maybe it's Brazilian culture, because it's definitely a lot of community. We had a
Mm-hmm.
lot of relationship building experiences. But yeah, you guys have done a really good job of valuing those relationships, and you see it like in the people, right? Because they
Mm-hmm.
like genuinely want to be together, which is, it makes me happy. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. I think you have to value the essentials in this case, right? So
Mm,
whenever I get troubled with my own thoughts about what is going right or wrong, I would say, do I still have the basics that I want to have? I still want to see people. Do I want still to meet with that people? Do
mm,
I still want to go to the same place? And the answer is yes. So okay. So that's to me is very important. So the rest is being patient or trying to motivate people in the right way. So pray for that and expect the best, right? I don't know, maybe some churches are different from others. We may be a church that will be more a place for people to maybe get some rest, be
yeah.
healed, and then serve in another place. If that is our calling, I would like to, if God could send a letter with that very clear to me, but it's not how it works. I will have to have some faith in the process, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's good. No, that's helpful. Well, just to kind of switch gears a little bit, but yet
Mm-hmm.
kind of related to that, what do you think? I mean, because I really just thinking about the local church, what do you think are some of the most important things for the church to be and to do? And to know, to use the knowing, being, doing, triad. What
Right.
are, like, when you think about the local church, in your context, like, what are some of the goals? Like, what are you
Right.
building toward?
That's an excellent question, and actually part of what we have been reviewing, right? I think we are very lucky to say that we have those priorities in the vineyard. I like those priorities because that can, that's so simple in some sense, right? 5 or 6 priorities. So like experience God. This is something that we really wanna be a church that people come and experience God. We have been talking about that a lot because we have lots of people in Brazil that are not going to church anymore. They think that they can live even without a church or
Mm,
living with God um, disconnected from the church. So, what would be the difference, right? In terms of what happened during a worship service, right? In a gathering, right? That would make people say, I need to come back to this more and more.
mm,
So that's one thing we want. And I have tried my best to develop that even last year. And we will emphasize even more this year. And goes back to the table and goes back to the communion and
mm,
somehow, right? We want to be a church that when people come here, they don't like only the aspect of being informal, but something on their spirit or something on their emotions is captured by what is happening. And that can be like the people attending in the front, like the reception. It could be the coffee, and it could be anything. So that's the type of a mindset or mentality we wanted to develop with the church locally, right?
Mm,
We want to have the experience, and we want to give the experience to others, real experience with God. That's our main goal. And that connects with being, being like Jesus in some sense, right? To know
mm,
Jesus and make him known. Our vision is passing through some of that now. So know Jesus, really know Jesus. Do we really know Jesus? Like, this is a question we want to answer maybe in the next months and years. Do we really know them? Because if we really know them, that has to change the things we're doing here as a
mm,
church, right?
mm,
Everything we do, internally or externally as well, which is an area we want also to invest a little bit in the next years. We have not been able to go too far on the neighborhood, let's say, but we have a feeling that it's just a feeling for now, but we will see if that is true. Look, is that
mm.
we feel like we are being discovered by people around the church, the building, I mean,
Yeah.
uh, now, which is something we always wanted to. So the last months we have had more than usual visitors that would say, we live by, close by here, and we want to join,
Yeah, that's
be
amazing.
more. Yeah, yeah. So that would be very good for us. We want to be a church that has more people from the neighborhood than us that are like 10 minutes away, 20 minutes away from this building. So that would
Mm.
be very pleasant, I would say, for us.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so it sounds like man, so many good values there that you can extrapolate. Community, mission, place for worship, experiencing God. Like, those are all kind of classic vineyard, vineyard things. So I'm curious. I kind of thinking about you and I really kind of had kind of built a online relationship over the course of the last year. Right, I
Right.
mean, we spent a lot of time texting and WhatsApping. I don't know if that's the correct way to say it. WhatsApping and Instagramming, a lot of conversations about theology and ministry and the Holy Spirit and the Vineyard and John Wimber. And you and I have both been influenced a lot by John Wimber. But I'm kind of curious, like, when your story was that you discovered the Vineyard, music, and then you got into like reading the theology behind it.
Hmm.
For you, what are some of the primary reasons why you're still in the Vineyard today? Like, you're like, oh man, these practices and this theological paradigm is why I'm here.
Okay. Yeah, that's not a very difficult answer because from the beginning, kingdom theology is something that got my attention. I have
Kingdom theology.
never,
Okay.
yes, because I like the Reformed theology that I knew a little bit, right? The Calvinisms of life and Arminianism, all those other doctrines or
Mm-hmm.
theologies, but they all they are all good part of the whole thing, but they look way more less, not way more, way less practical in my opinion.
Mm, mm,
And the kingdom theology was something that was calling for us for doing something beyond just knowing things.
mm,
Now, so if you think, I'm talking about this, and I remember like again 17, 20 years old, walking the streets in my hometown and reading the Gospels at the same time, all again, and I say, I see some guy like cannot walk and close by the bank. Was going the time when we went to the bank to get money,
mm-hmm.
right? So and say, hey, I had questions. I know this sounds strange, but I had maybe similar in a lower level questions like Wimber, right? Someone would tell me how to pray for these guys,
Yeah, yeah,
because it's what I'm reading in the Gospels. Is this part of the book or not, right? I have no idea at that time about all the kingdom theology, right? Or even
yeah.
the charismatic, because, we're talking about 96, maybe 996. By that time, man, Vineyard was fully a heresy in my context, you
Mm,
know? All the weird stuff was just starting, and people were
Mm-hmm.
speaking badly about all this movement. So I was afraid of that. But at the same time, I'm reading the book, and the book is talking about people doing some of these,
Mm-hmm.
supernatural things. So imagine my surprise when I see a theology was very similar in the worship side. I mean, the songs and with the theology was like if I was finding someone that was saying things the way I always kind of thought this should be. The worship was the same. All
Mm.
the worship priorities, right? The philosophy of worship that we have in the Vineyard, I was trying to live that in other churches, was not working, right? And then say, hey, these guys have all on paper, all the directions here are very similar to what I want to practice. And then same thing with theology, right? So there is the kingdom now and the kingdom not yet. And we can pray for people. You don't need to be weird.
Mm.
I was always afraid of what was seeing TV, right? I don't want to be like those guys on TV, right? That is, here in Brazil, they are crazy. The ones that we have
Mm-hmm.
normally in TV, really
Yeah.
crazy. You don't want to be like them. And that pushes people away from the charismatic because they think that is what it means to be supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
So so was super pleasant and nice to see that theology and say I can understand this and I can practice this. So that's why connect and then back to your question, right? So the vineyard to me is with the ones at least intentionally if we're not doing that correctly, at least intentionally we sign for that, right? We
Mm.
will do this. So I want to be among people that say yes, Bible is my number one, and from the Bible, the kingdom theology, it's what we will try to live for. So to me, that's what, if we lose that, I probably will leave Vineyard as
Mm.
well very quickly.
Mm. Yeah. So for you, so it's the theology of the kingdom and the practice of the kingdom.
Yes, those
Yeah.
combine not only
Yeah.
theoretical or
Yeah.
theoretical
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
ideas, right, and
Yeah.
doctrines. Know
Yeah.
this, believe this, that's fine. Sit in your
Yeah.
chair, live there.
Yeah.
But the idea of seeing things happening, right, and trusting God for things that you cannot do in a very practical way.
Mm.
That sounds nice when you say that from a pulpit on from a and
Yeah.
you're just preaching. If that is stops at the end of it's like a worship service that you preach about healing and people receiving prayer for healing, and then you say, and that was the word of God. Good night, go home, and that's it. To me, sounds strange. To me, it's not natural,
Yeah.
right? And so, and that's what something that we really appreciate in the Vineyard. And all the rest,
Yeah.
it's not only about the supernatural, but the
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
being fully like Jesus. So there is
Yeah.
all the mercy and compassion type of thing as well. This is super important. Being
Mm.
gracious with people, and that's all part of the supernatural as well. And I would tell you everyone that is a reference for me. If I don't see these things combined, I maybe I don't want to follow that person, right, as a reference, because I don't want one piece of my priorities, right? I need to see someone trying to implement or to live by all these priorities at the same time, because that's the challenge. It's very easy to be a worship guy. It's very easy to be a mercy, compassion guy. It's very easy to be a theology guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's there that can show that all the things are important, equally important, even that you don't do
Yeah.
all of them
No,
100%.
I think that's really interesting because I mean clearly, when I compare like vineyard leader topics or sermons or like national conference talks from the 80s and 90s, one of the things that you see is a lot. I mean, Don Williams would be a perfect example of someone who spoke at national conferences and taught like really robust kingdom theology and was able to connect that, because I feel like a challenge for us today is really working hard to demonstrate why kingdom theology still in 2026 matters, right? Like it still is. I've been doing this leadership. We have this leadership development group course that I'm teaching right now, and And last session was on kingdom theology. And it was really fun because there's a lot of people, in the room that like they've heard the phrase kingdom of God. They know that we talk about it, but they're like, I don't, beyond, yeah, I mean, what does it even mean? And so I had put together this talk where I showed how kingdom recenters theology and practices, and I went through and talked about the emphasis on kingdom theology in relation to the atonement, um, creation, anthropology, like human beings as kingdom representatives, soteriology, the doctrine of salvation, entrance into the kingdom. We talked about, I'm looking at all the list, pneumatology, Holy Spirit. We talked about ecclesiology, the church as the kingdom community. And it was really fun because I remember when I got done, there was about like 8 people who were like, I did not realize that was why it's so important for us, and I was like, yeah, that's kind of the thing is that, in fact, it challenged me, like, I got to do a better job as a pastor, really tying everything back to Jesus, King Jesus and the kingdom in all of our talks, right? Because I think you and I both agree that kingdom theology and kingdom practice is just so central to who we are. And yet
Hmm.
it seems like, we have not done a really great job, maybe in modern vineyard world, of maybe, and I think it makes sense, right? Because if it's like it's been said, if everything's kingdom, there's nothing's kingdom, like you can use these terms, and they lose their meaning if you just apply it
Right.
to everything. But it's like, no, actually, the kingdom impacts the theology of the kingdom impacts everything. It's not just,
Everything.
yeah, it's not
Yeah.
just a buzzword, I guess. That's kind of
Yeah.
my
And
point.
one thing that to me it is, I take as my fault that I need to work it better, and maybe it's similar, other pastors will relate to that, is that, you got the word, the theme, right? Kingdom. And we use that all the time. And we think everybody's understanding that the same way, and they are not.
Hmm.
And that's one thing. And the other thing is us failing to explore what you mentioned, a few things there, but there is way more things that we could explore. They are
Yeah.
correlated to the kingdom, impacted by the kingdom. So when you say, okay, let's have like a series now in church about kingdom of God, some people say, oh no, all again. I have
Yeah.
heard about the kingdom the last 10 years.
Yeah.
No, you may have heard the word, but there is a lot to be talked about that. So it's our job to bring these other things that can correlate then with the kingdom of
Hmm.
God. So they say, what? That's also about the kingdom of God is related? Yes, everything is related. Any area of life may be
Hmm.
related, and it is related, impacted
Yeah.
by kingdom of God theology and practice.
Yeah.
And
That's good.
practice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
right. Yeah.
I'm realizing that as well. So
Yeah.
maybe I will like make a series or not call it Kingdom of God
Yeah.
series, because we'll make people not want to attend it, thinking they know
Yeah.
about it. But you know
What's
what I
the
mean? So
what's the
yeah,
Portuguese word for kingdom? Hey, no. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, because is it Spanish? I was gonna say Reino is Spanish, right? Yeah, yeah. We did a sermon series, I think maybe 2 years ago, and I called it Reina, and so it's a Spanish word for kingdom, just to do something different,
you're right.
that I snuck it in. But yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Well, I guess kind of wrapping up here. I'd be curious because you brought it up. You said you pointed us to the bread in the cup behind you. You talked about
Yes.
how you're exploring ways to integrate what I call the sacramental charismatic tapestry.
Mm-hmm.
What's that been like? What's that? Because you guys currently don't celebrate the Eucharist weekly, right? Are you monthly?
Monthly, yes.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
in Brazil normally is monthly. Most of churches are monthly. Yes,
yeah. Except for the Catholics, and there's way more Catholics there.
except for the Catholics.
There's
Yes.
way more Catholics there, buddy. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just
Yeah.
curious, what's that been looking like? Like trying
Yeah.
to bridge that that those two emphasis or
Uh, Yeah, I look. I would say that is. I hope is something that God is putting in my heart. First of all,
hmm
I would like
yeah,
to say that, and not only an idea. I don't want to treat this in a way it's just a strategy.
yeah,
Um, but I started pay more attention to this communion aspects and everything that is related. Um, and it has some connection with the other topic of the experience God. So I was reading some stuff. I read some of your articles, or maybe I have listened to some podcasts of this
Mm-hmm.
Sacramental Charismatic podcast as well that influenced me. So maybe
Yeah.
it's your fault. Uh,
Yes.
but
Mission
you see,
accomplished. No, I'm just kidding.
that drawing over there is older than our conversations. Maybe it was a sign of God. That was
Yeah,
one of
yeah,
my daughters that painting that for me. It's
yeah.
very simplistic
I was
in
here
some
just to
sense.
nudge you. I was just nudging you to be obedient to what the Holy Spirit had already been doing in your heart.
Yeah. Well, it's all things combined, right? You need sometimes you're
Yeah,
a little bit, slow to
yeah.
understand what God wants. So you need
I
multiple
I
people
understand that.
bringing that.
Yes.
You understand, right?
Yeah, I do.
So yeah, it's a lot. Look about the our expectation, I would say, or our desire of
Mm,
experience Jesus more
mm,
profoundly. So
mm.
why I would disregard something so central? So I really pray. This is very honest. Actually, I'm really praying that we understand the community well, because in my mind, my heart, I don't want to miss one beat of
Mm-hmm.
what God has for us in my church through this process.
Yeah,
So I want me and I want my family, I want my church to understand what is real behind it, so they don't think this is one more rite that we have in your church, one more ritual only, right? We
yeah,
do that
yeah,
because what Christians do. I want them to really experience God
yeah.
through this process. And my expectations is that if, as we do this, and when we do this, maybe in some point we will have some testimonies, people saying, you know what happened during the Lord's Supper, yes, last
Yeah,
Sunday.
yeah,
I say, what happened? And they tell me something that, whoa, nobody even was asking for that, praying for that. It was your experience with Jesus was real and good to see it, right? Happening. So I don't know. Basically, uh, reinforcing the value,
yeah.
reinforcing maybe the symbols. We're still learning how to do that better. And also there is a sense of when you say communion, right, it means everybody, right? It's not only
Mm-hmm.
the leadership ministering. So
Yeah.
one aspect that I changed as well is, and I reinforce it that with all the people that are leading the communion, say, hey, emphasize that nobody's taking the communion; they are receiving,
Mm.
right? It's Jesus serving it. It's not you taking it. Like, I know it's very, it's not. It's just words sometimes, but the idea is that, like, I have my right here in some
Yeah.
sense. I don't want to be that. It's more like, you know what? Jesus is offering this to you, and through your brothers, it's like Jesus himself that is offering to you this opportunity of himself. Something like that is in my mind
Yeah.
when I explain that to them. And I'm trying to make them participate in that way and serving the communion. So last year I did one communion or two only. All the other ones was someone from the church they were leading. And this was the first year we did this.
Cool. Yeah. That's great. I mean, I think that's one of the more becoming more sacramental in our theology, in a vineyard context, I think with everybody gets to play. That's one of the cool things is that we don't have this apostolic succession, ecclesiology, priesthood approach to leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you can build Eucharistic teams or communion teams that that's what we've done in our local church, and we've seen that as an opportunity for people to develop gifting with speaking and preaching, too, because it's a place where, every single week we have an opportunity for where people lead us in communion, where I do it like once every, I will lead it maybe once every 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks. I mean, sometimes it'll be a few months before I have an opportunity, because the schedule's filled out, so that's
Right.
cool. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, Leandro, it has been just really great to hear from you, and I want to encourage so people can check out your church. So if they speak Portuguese, they can
Mm-hmm.
go to your website, and do you guys live stream your services?
No, we're not live streaming anymore, and we stopped even recording for now. But
Okay,
you'll find old stuff in YouTube and our
yeah, but they can
YouTube
go to
channel. Yeah.
your Instagram account. I know it posts things because I think
Yes.
you guys kind of do the same thing we do, where you just do a lot of Instagram uh,
Right.
reels
We're
and
trying to
things
improve
too.
now with some tips we received from a consultant called
Mm-hmm.
Luke Garrett.
Yeah. 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 Get rid of
So,
all
but
of it. Yeah.
yeah, it didn't work. You're gonna call you, right? So this didn't work, and you
Yeah.
told us blah blah blah. I need to blame someone.
Yeah.
So,
Blame it all on me.
but we're doing more. But yes, the main thing we use now is Instagram. So it's a
Yeah.
Igreja Vineyard Curitiba. You can look for Vineyard Curitiba, and you probably will find it. Follow
Yeah.
us. I know it's Portuguese, but probably helps us to spread a little bit the
Yeah.
audience, right? The
It's fun
audience.
too. It's also
Yeah,
fun to see
and
what you
Instagram
guys are doing.
translate most of the things, so maybe you can even read some of
That's
the posts.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was just gonna say that's what I do. I every time I see one of your posts, I do translate and I can
translate.
read it in
Yeah.
English. And yeah, I mean that's the crazy thing about right now, I feel like, and this is the positive side of technology is, this in the last year, over a year now, we've been in our local church been working with a community of Spanish speaking. We have this, partnership with this local church that we host share a building with. We do a lot of things in Spanish, and I don't know Spanish. I know food. That's all I know. The important things, But man, having the ability with AirPods and with I've got the Meta Ray-Ban glasses now, so I can translate. There's just
Mm-hmm.
so many ways to do it, to where you can communicate with people. In fact, when we were walking around Curitiba, my daughter and I just would break out the phone and boom, and I could communicate with people there, and they were like able to give me my coffee.
Oh,
That was the most important time.
yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
cool.
that's really helps. Yes, we are more connected, and I like the idea because one of the things I do as well, I try to do a lot in Brazil is translate things for other pastors sometimes because I know it's hard. Not everybody would speak English, so I have a couple. My videos from John Wimber in my I have a Instagram called Pães and Peixes, like loaves and fishes. So loaves and fishes, and that's also to help people to get access to more materials. Few of your articles in your
Mm.
how do you call that, Substack? I don't know
Yeah.
if you can mention
Substack.
that here,
Yep.
but
Yeah.
it's not prohibited.
You're allowed to promote my Substack. Go. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So sign for Luke's
Yeah.
Substack. That's good stuff. And there is some Portuguese there as well, and there's
Yeah.
some Portuguese in our website as well, from what Luke is saying. So you can find it there, and that's the idea, right? To share what we have,
Mm.
and with others. I don't like the idea that only a few people can have access to good stuff. So
Yeah.
thanks, Luke, for also inviting me to share this space with you. It's been a pleasure to be able to talk to you before this and today.
Yeah. No, I will just say, Leandro, your friendship is it's so interesting again, because as much as I'm like, sometimes technology is kind of annoying, or distracting or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, there's been several relationships that I've developed this past year with people that I now consider good friends.
Mm-hmm.
You had to put up with me for 8 days there, so you were forced into it. You and your lovely wife, who, by the way, I will just say, your wife is one of the most beautiful humans I've ever met in my life. I mean, just, oh man, she's so sweet and
She's, she's,
kind
yeah,
and yeah, and I mean, yeah, everything about our trip in November was just such a blessing.
yeah.
Yeah, but your friendships means a lot, and I'm so grateful that you're willing to share things that you've learned, and I love your transparency. Yeah, because it's ministry's hard and church planning's hard, and sometimes it doesn't work out the way we intended it to work out. But you've been faithful, and you keep on doing all you can to honor Jesus and to serve people. And I just want to say thank you on behalf of the Vineyard, because that's a testimony to for us to watch and to see and to
Mm-hmm.
emulate. So thank you so much. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I appreciate being here, as I said, and I still believe that we will have more opportunities to do more stuff together.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's see what happens. And what this all has been very good, friendship that we have developing. I didn't plan for that. I think you didn't as well. It just happened in this way.
Yeah.
And it's funny to see how we can be so different but so equal at the same time. So to me,
Yeah.
that's amazing how
Yeah.
those things happen. So I'm very
Yeah.
glad. Thank you for being available. Look, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, hey, I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode. As Leandro said, there is a Substack that you can check out for the Sacramental Charismatic. And again, please consider coming out to Red Bluff for an equipping conference in March, because I can guarantee that it's going to have a lot of really great speakers and workshops. And so if you miss those opportunities to be equipped, or if you want to bring leaders to be equipped, this would be the conference for you. Leandro, have a great day. Thanks for listening. See everybody later.
See you guys. Bye.